Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 228. Hey, howdy ho. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. If you are brand new, hello, a warm welcome to you. This is a podcast that is dedicated to helping new, aspiring, and even seasoned money coaches, financial coaches, and wealth coaches navigate the world of building an online business, an online coaching business. And I am here to help you do that. I am a financial coach turned business coach, and I've been through it. So I want to give you the tools, the lessons, and anything that you need to help you build your own coaching business in far less time than it took me. So welcome to the show. We have a fun one in store today. But before we dive in, I do need to introduce you to this week's podcast sponsor, which I feel like I say introduce every week, but you all are already so familiar. Only for those newbies out there. The sponsor is the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, my 12-week intimate coaching program where I help new aspiring and seasoned money coaches build their sustainable and scalable booked out money coaching business. We are in the middle of the Blueprint summer round, but for those of you who are ready to take your business to the next level, you're ready to stop the struggle, stop spinning a million plates in the air and feeling like you're doing all the things yet making very little progress. For those of you who are ready to start seeing the rewards, seeing the results that you've been waiting for after putting so much time and effort and energy into this business, for those of you who are ready to stop standing in your own way and actually just feel the fear but do it anyway, to put yourself out there and be brave and go public with your business, then the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is for you. So this fall, I'm opening up a handful of one-on-one spots, and one of those could be yours. All you have to do is jump on the waitlist. Head to wanderwealthy.com/apply, scroll all the way to the bottom to hit the button so that you can fill out your name and your email address, and that will add you to the waitlist. Collect bonus points by reaching out to me on Instagram at Tess_Wicks. Let me know that you tuned into this episode and let me know that you signed up for the waitlist. I can't wait to meet you. I spoke about this recently, but podcasting is such a one-to-many thing that it's very hard for me to know who's tuning in. So when you do reach out, it just means the world, and it'll be so great to put a name to a face, to a profile, and all of that good stuff. So wanderwealthy.com/apply to jump on the wait list. And I cannot wait to follow up with you, each of you individually this fall. And let's do it. Let's build your money coaching business. All right. This week's topic is about social media marketing. And, it's for many feels like that necessary evil, but it does not have to be evil. But for many of you who consider yourself to be quite introverted, sometimes social media marketing and marketing your business in general can feel like such a huge, daunting task. And you just automatically are like, no, there's no way I can start putting myself out there on social media to build my business because I am shy or I'm introverted and I, just have all these thoughts and feelings about it that it keeps me from actually doing it. So I hear you. I see you. I probably understand what most of you are going through in terms of that specific thing. I will never understand the whole picture, but I want you to know that it is possible for you to create a platform and a space on the internet that does feel safe for you to go out and feels either energizing, or maybe it's not energizing, but maybe it feels sustainable and doable. Okay. So let's talk about this. I'm going to share with you my 5 tips for social media marketing as an introverted financial coach. Okay. How do you show up? How do you make it happen? How do you do it? Even if you're scared in the beginning, how do you make it happen so that you can really build that trust with your ideal clients and build your money coaching business? So I think we first need to understand what introversion means and how it, relates to social media, because I really think that, I talk with so many coaches, and so many of them reach out to me and say, I know I need to be doing more things on social media. I know I need to maybe make videos or show my face or just like create more content, but I'm an introvert. And so that's really a big challenge for me. And I hear you. I am also an introvert, which I think oftentimes shocks people because I am so visible on social media. I am so visible in my podcast. And so for a lot of people, that is like, no, you're not. You're not an introvert. You're an extrovert. Or it's just shocking they don't understand how. But I truly believe that your own understanding of introversion and how it relates to social media and what social media can be is probably your biggest hindrance to succeeding at using social media as a marketing tool for your business. Okay. So our understanding of our own introversion, or what introversion is, and kind of using that as a label to say, well, I'm an introvert, so I can't be good at that. And then also our understanding of social media, and maybe we only think that there's one way to use social media, or there's a handful of ways to use social media, and that isn't comfortable in our eyes of us from how we understand, our own understanding of introversion. The combination, I really believe, keeps people from even trying, keeps people from even taking what they might even perceive as a risk, only to realize that it's not actually that difficult, or it's not actually that scary, or it's not actually that risky. Okay. So here's a fun fact that I really only learned after consuming so much on social media, but really after finding certain people and following them for a while, and then hearing their perspective on social media and, what they think of themselves. Okay. I have to keep it a little bit vague so that this will be a fun fact and not just like, okay, that didn't go anywhere. So a majority of influencers who are successful at social media, whether they're on YouTube or they're on Instagram or they're on TikTok or wherever they're showing up and influencing and creating lots of content and usually showing their face, I would say a majority of them are actually introverts. And you find this out by following them and then hearing them tell you, like, I am actually very introverted. This is, but like they use social media in a way that makes sense for them. Okay. Because social media is a socializing tool that can be used in many different ways. And as an introvert, you can actually leverage how you want to use social media to your benefit. And by understanding yourself and what makes sense for you, you can really leverage it to your benefit. So here's what we know about introversion. And what's interesting is, like, if you do like very, very basic level Googling, you find out that like the psychologist's understanding of introversion is very different from how the public describes it. So that's a really interesting kind of unique nuance, that there's a little bit of misunderstanding of what introversion really is. But I think people are becoming more and more aware of what it is. But there's also various different types of introversion, and, introversion versus extroversion is a binary, and you can fall anywhere on that. So that's a side note. But how we understand introversion is that it's the orientation toward the internal private world of oneself and one's inner thoughts and feelings, rather than toward the outer world of people and things. And that usually makes us think that it's like rather than towards being social, right? But in fact, what we know even further is that introverts gain energy from reflection, and they end up losing energy in social gatherings because socializing, social gatherings are much more, focused on the energy of people and external things. Okay. So an introvert is obviously the opposite of an extrovert. However, almost all people need occasional solitude to replenish their energy, which is fascinating. So even if extroverts, there are people who are like tried and true extroverts, and they're like, well, I like alone time. I need alone time too. That's obviously part of just like energy replenishment. But mostly introverts prefer either small gatherings or being in solitude because that feels energizing, because they are just even much more focused and interested in like deep thinking and kind of focusing on their own thoughts and their internal world versus the external world, which like I feel like everyone has a little bit of that. And then everyone is also like, that sounds really weird. And I don't think I'm like that. But I think that's what adds to the complexity of this whole situation in the first place. Now, this doesn't mean that introverts don't like socializing, but they typically prefer to socialize in small groups or one-on-one. Some introverts are happy and even appear extroverted when socializing in bigger groups, but energetically, they'll need to spend equal or more time in solitude to replenish the energy expelled during that period. So, with that knowledge, I think it's important to see that, you can actually utilize social media to allow you to be your introverted self. You can utilize social media and use it as a way to express your own kind of internal thoughts and really the deeper understanding of your internal world. You can use social media to connect intimately in one-on-one settings or in very small group settings, as opposed to thinking that social media is like, here I am communicating with all these people as if we're at a house party. You can also realize that what social media really is probably you sitting alone in your house communicating. Yes, in your mind, it's one to many, but also you can choose to believe and know that it's also one to one, because when you put something out on social media, it's most likely being watched or read or consumed by someone that is alone in their house as well. So that's the interesting thing about social media and introversion, and how, I don't want to say that people use introversion as an excuse not to go on social media, but it's really just because we don't see all the different ways we can utilize it, and in a lot of ways really reframe what it is that you're doing, right? You're not trying to be the life of the party. You're trying to connect intimately with people without there being a party at all. And that's almost a very introverted way to go about things. So social media is for extroversion and introversion, and you can use it as such. Okay, so let me share with you my 5 tips just to get right into it. And then I would love to hear what you think. I would love to hear, especially if you are an introvert and you found a way to utilize social media that works for you. I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear your perspective. Or if you still feel held back, knowing that you are an introvert and you still feel held back by the idea of social media, especially after I share with you some of my tips, I'd love to know kind of what else you feel might be getting in your way. And we could obviously talk about that in another episode. Okay. So tip number 1, as an introvert, from introverted me to introverted you, here's my first tip. Know your energy peaks and valleys, and then leverage that to manage your time on social media. Okay. So this might look like times of the day or days of the week, whether it's, okay, Mondays and Fridays, I'm feeling a little bit more jazzed about being social, so I'm going to do it. Or maybe Mondays and Fridays is like when you need a break because you know that the weekend is super social for you. So then Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are when you can kind of offset and be a little bit more social. Like that's just an example. Or maybe it's just 3 days a week, during the work week that you feel that energy and you're ready to, you have an energy peak. That doesn't mean like you feel energized to be social. It just means you feel more energy, which means you have more energy to expel so you can do some of those energy draining tasks like socializing, okay? Because sometimes we never feel like socializing and still it's a requirement of the job. So, there's being clear about that expectation. Another thing you can do is consider your days. So maybe that means that in the evenings, you're much more likely to be social than right away in the morning. Or maybe it's right away in the morning and the evenings, but nothing like between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's okay. Leverage that. Understand your energy peaks and valleys, and know that what is probably more draining for you is expending that energy through anything that seems like socializing, even if it is using social media, which isn't always socializing at all because, it's you don't even know who's necessarily seeing or hearing these things. But it's still, if in your mind it is socializing and that it drains your energy, therefore, then recognize those peaks and valleys and leverage them. So have a plan carved out for when you get to be introspective and when you need to be on and social. And I'm using air quotes for on and social. Okay. And take it an extra step and mark it in your calendar so you have boundaries in place for your social media working hours versus everything else. So this is something I used to do, especially because, connecting with the people who I'm following and who are following me and who I see as potential ideal clients, but also connecting with my current clients, all of that I still do and need to do on social media. So I need to have time carved out. Otherwise, I could go days just hiding in a cave, not on social media at all. But I know that I need to be on it. And I know that, sometimes it feels like an energy draining activity. And so I have to identify the times when I'm open to it and when I'm not. And so for me, it was like right away in the morning. And then, as I'm wrapping up the workday, and I could carve out like 30 minutes to an hour to do that. And I would actually just recommend like no more than an hour a day, even if you're using it for work. Now, the second tip is to leverage those energy valleys. Okay, so during your energy valleys, you likely need inward reflection and solitude, which is a perfect time to actually think through your content plan, draft outlines for posts or for videos, and ideate what the visuals are going to look like. If you're creating static posts, you'll probably do the full post creation during that time as well. So during those energy valleys is when you are going to be, in the creation mode. And so leverage that and know that that's the exact work that you crave and that you need to fill yourself up. And then my third tip is to leverage those energy peaks, kind of like I was sharing in tip one. Tip one is really just about the calendar. It's calendaring out, know your peaks and valleys, and then calendar that out. But my third tip is actually, what do you do during those energy peaks? So this is when you get to quote unquote turn on and be visible. So whether you choose to do that in a pre-recorded video or a reel, you're going to set up and you're going to make that happen because now you're probably feeling energized. Maybe you've put on real clothes instead of your sweatpants. Maybe you've taken the time to do your hair or however you want to show up too. By the way, you don't have to have your hair done or your makeup done or anything. You can just be yourself, but it's still what's it going to take for you to be ready to be on and be willing to be visible? So that could still be okay, I'm not even going out and socializing, but I need to record these videos or record a reel, and that still takes a lot of energy from you. Other things could be doing a live video, which is a lot more like socializing at a party. And then stories isn't like socializing at a party, but people will watch it throughout the day. And so you know that it's going out and then people are consuming it. And then of course, other things you can be doing is actually having conversations with people, interacting with other people's posts, actually DMing people and connecting with people. And I think, what's really important about being on and being visible is knowing that showing your face, right? That doesn't mean you have to send a DM and send someone a picture, but your posts, your videos, however you're showing up, showing your face is really important when building a coaching business because people are naturally attracted to other people's faces versus just a logo or a picture of an inanimate object. So showing up and being more visible on video is really going to help you immensely. And if you can get more comfortable with that, understanding how to leverage your personality trait of introversion, you can go a long way. All right. The fourth tip is when showing up on social media, think of it as a one-to-one conversation. So a lot of times, like I said at the beginning of this, it is a one-on-one conversation. You're posting or you're making a video in the solitude of your own home. You're putting it out there, and the people who are most likely consuming it, unless people, which unfortunately these days people do this, are consuming content while at a party, which is odd, but that's human evolution for you. But most people are consuming it in the solitude of their own home. So it really is a one-to-one conversation, even if it feels a little bit broken down because technically it is. It's basically like sending someone mail, right? But now it just gets to them a lot faster, but it's still one-to-one, it's still intimate. So picture an ideal client in your mind, and I think what helps a lot with this is if you can picture an ideal client, and then if you know someone, so if you've worked with a client in the past or you're currently working with a client and they're the perfect ideal client, just picture them when you're creating this content or when you're recording the videos or when you're doing lives. Show up only for them. Don't worry about everyone else who pops on, just show up for them. If you don't have clients that you've worked with who are ideal clients, then if you can kind of picture an ideal client and think of someone in your life who really represents that, then just picture them, okay? But really make sure that you're creating that content for them. Introverts tend to be very hard on themselves when doing videos because they have the idea and expectation that if they're going to do it, it has to be perfect. But what I want you to do is just drop the perfection and remember that your goal in marketing is to connect with your ideal clients. So it's totally okay for you to have notes written down and for you to mess up and correct yourself on the spot. Like, that's all good. Don't obsess about your ums or your appearance, because when you don't obsess about that, when you be honest and open and say like, okay, I have some notes on my phone, or I wrote down my top 5 because otherwise I'll totally forget them. That's what allows people to connect with you, right? People are naturally attracted to faces, so we want to connect that way, but we're also really attracted to each other's imperfections in a way that allows them to go, oh, you're a real human. And I think what's even more important is that as a coach, when they can see these little chinks in your armor and these little flaws, it allows them to feel safer exposing those same things to you because they feel like there's not any expectation of perfection when they show up to want to work with you. So remember that when you are even doing your marketing stuff, like how you market, how you show up is a big indication of how you actually end up coaching people and how safe people feel when they are working with you. So allow those little imperfections. Don't be so hard on yourself. And allow that to happen because that's ultimately what makes you more approachable and authentic and trustworthy, okay? You can't create authenticity. You can just be yourself, and that's what is authentic. I know that's such like a buzzword, but everyone's always like, okay, well, how do I be more authentic? And it's like, you can't learn how to be more authentic. You just have to drop all the things you have learned. You have to unlearn this expectation of perfectionism that we've all grown up into and be willing and able to just show up and expose your flaws, not purposefully, but just not hide them. Okay. The 5th tip for my fellow introverts when it comes to social media, and I think this one is the most important, is to set your boundaries and then respect them, okay? And know that when you set boundaries for yourself, you set expectations for others. So if you set that boundary for yourself of being perfect, then you're going to set that expectation for others. And you don't expect that of others, right? You expect them to show up as themselves too. So, remember that. But as we move forward, set these boundaries for yourself so that you can set these expectations for others. I think this is really important when it comes to the idea that people need to hear from you immediately, right? Even clients who are paying don't need that. But we feel this pressure, and especially if you're an introvert and you're on social media, all of a sudden you think, okay, and then if I post and someone comments, then I have to comment back right away. Or if I'm having a conversation with someone in the DMs, then I have to respond right away. But that's not accurate at all. And it's really, I don't know why we got to believe this, that we have to just like respond instantaneously, probably because of the society that we're, coming up in, but that you don't need to do that at all. This is your business at the end of the day. So you're allowed to clock out and clock back in. The people will be there tomorrow morning. If tomorrow morning is your next peak moment, and that's when the calendar says, okay, time to get back on social media, that's when you respond. Or heck, leave it until the end of the day when you have your other peak moment of the day to get on social media and respond then, right? If you don't have time, if you're creating the content or if you're recording the video in the morning half, then respond in the later. And I'm just using my example of when my peaks and valleys are. But if you have different ones, if you only have one peak time a day, then get done when you need to get done. If you can't respond tomorrow, then respond the next day. This idea of instantaneous response time is crazy. Even companies that have big, huge teams don't respond instantly. So that expectation is not necessary for you. And I think the second you do respond instantly is when you set that expectation for others. So remember that when you respect your own boundaries, other people are naturally going to respect them because it creates those expectations. So something I do specifically with my clients, it's not as easy to do on social media without like putting it in my bio, which would be weird, is I'll just let them know, you can expect to hear from me within 24 hours during the week, 48 hours if you submit it over the weekend, aka expect to hear from me Monday through Friday, and here are the times where I'm working. And I let them know that so that they have that expectation. And then even if I do respond within less than 24 hours, it actually exceeds their expectations, but their expectations don't change because we make it very clear what's happening in the beginning. Okay, that's an important boundary setting guideline for you that actually doesn't necessarily apply to this episode because we're talking about social media, which again is a little bit harder to set those expectations, but you can still have them in place. And I would say most people don't expect to hear from you immediately, especially when you are a business and a brand online versus, just a friend who you might be messaging and all of a sudden they stop messaging you and you don't know what happened to them, right? So you can respond to people or to messages, to comments, whatever, during your next social media time slot. You do not need to do it all now. And side note for this is I think a lot of people with, especially with stories being a big part on Instagram or Facebook, which stories are very much like real-time capturing of your day and tips that you want to share. I oftentimes might record in the moment just so that I can capture whatever it is, but then I'll save it and I won't actually publish it until later. And I think that that's a really good tip, especially if, it takes a lot more it takes less energy for me to actually record things than it does for me to publish them and make sure that, I have the captions on and I've tagged things if I want to tag them, or I've added a GIF. Like that to me, for whatever reason, is very energy draining. So I actually reserve the posting for later, which you can do by saving things to your camera roll, and then you can just reshare later on in the day instead of doing it all in the moment. And I think that's another draining activity that a lot of us introverts are like, oh, I can't possibly do that. Respect your boundaries, record in the moment if you have that inspiration. If you don't, then it's fine. You can just do something later another time. You don't need to capture every moment of your day either if that's not something you want to do. But then know that you can always post later. Okay. So those are my 5 tips. To rattle them off for you again, know your energy peaks and valleys and schedule your social media time in that. Then during your energy valleys, you can also schedule out those so that you can focus on the creation, the inward reflection, brainstorming, ideation, outlines, content plans, visuals, all of that good stuff. We love that stuff. Fills us right up. Then during your energy peaks is when you turn on, when you become visible. You record the videos, you go live, you create stories, or you publish your stories. You have conversations, you comment on things, you engage. All of that stuff, do those in your energy peaks. Number 4, when showing up on social media, just choose for it to be a one-to-one because it very much is most of the time. So allow yourself to envision your ideal client and have conversation, create the content for them, and drop the perfectionism. Be yourself. And number 5 is to set your boundaries and respect them, and then know that if you don't get to it today, you can get to it tomorrow in your next energy peak when you're doing your social media. All right. If you need assistance in creating content ideas, so now that you know that you can be an introvert and you can still use social media, if you need assistance to create high converting social content, whether that's for reels, for your stories, for posts, for blogs, for podcasts, for videos, literally, you can use the client attraction content matrix for any of these. So this is my program where I show you my game-changing proprietary tool called the Content Matrix, and I walk you through the science behind it, the content marketing strategy that's behind it, and then I show you how this tool helps you create 6 to 12 months worth of content ideas in as little as 3 hours if you really go ham. But it's also a tool that you're going to be able to use for the next however many years in your business, and it is totally game-changing, makes your life so much easier, and allows you to know that you're creating super high converting, connection-worthy content. If you want to get a piece of this, if you want to get in on this, head to wanderwealthy.com/content. You can get my full course that'll teach you the strategy behind the Content Matrix, and then the actual Content Matrix, plus some really awesome bonuses for under $300, and it's going to change the game for you. So wanderwealthy.com/content. Don't forget to check out this week's show notes of the podcast. Head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 228. Jump on the waitlist for the blueprint, wanderwealthy.com/apply, and grab the Client Attraction Content Matrix. It is time for you to become visible, for you to show up on social media, and for you to market your money coaching business. All right, until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.